Morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of you who have joined us for today's webinar from whichever part of the world you are presently in. Welcome to the webinar, Unleash the Power of Data Migration from SAP BW or SAP HANA to Snowflake using aiAURA DFast. We shall start the session at 11 a.m. ET. We are streaming live on YouTube and you will find the link in the chat window in case you want to share in your professional network. However, we are waiting for a few more guests to join. So in the meanwhile, let us enjoy this video.
Today, insightful data is the key to solving complex problems and leading the digital market.
Enterprises need well-structured data with advanced data analytics capabilities. Derive valuable insights, deploy successful business strategies, improve customer experiences. aiAURA DFast eases the transformation by migrating SAP HANA and BW objects to Snowflake rapidly.
Unleash the power of data migration from SAP BW HANA to Snowflake using aiAURA DFast.
Greetings, everyone, again. A very warm welcome to you all on behalf of Tech. I'm Meghana Ahuja, Team Lead, Marketing, and I contribute to content creation and strategy development. And I'm very pleased to be your host for today's webinar. We are very excited to see such an overwhelming response to the webinar, and I'm sure all of you are equally excited as we are to hear from our industry leaders. Now let us see what all do we have for today's session as learning points. We will hear from our industry experts on various things like nuances of overcoming data challenges while migrating from SAP BW or SAP HANA systems onto Snowflake. We'll also look into how Snowflake helps adopt a data-driven approach for a better decision-making. We will witness a live demo of the tool aiAURA DFast in action, focusing on its industry-specific usage. And of course, we will see how aiAURA DFast fast-tracks data migration journey by up to 50 to 60% using the lift and shift migration. And as if this all is not enough, there is something even more rewarding. Now listen to this carefully. All attendees are eligible for a 2-week free trial of the aiAURA DFast tool. All you need to do is connect your own SAP HANA or SAP BW system and migrate objects to Snowflake, really without paying for it for the span of 2 weeks. So I believe that's a great offer. Now let us understand something more about our speakers for today. The speakers are Praveen Kola, Vice President, Data Engineering and Data Science at Tech, and Syed Naqvi, Senior Manager, Data Engineering at Tech. Praveen has significant experience in building teams focused on developing enterprise AI technologies. As a leader and an AI enthusiast, he has been focused on helping clients embark on their digital transformation journeys with enterprise AI adaptation. He holds a bachelor's degree in metallurgical engineering. Thank you for joining the session, Praveen. Moving on to our next speaker for today, Syed Naqvi. Syed is a senior manager in data engineering at Tech. He has extensive experience in leading AI projects and product development. His vast experience helps clients in their data warehouse migration onto the cloud platforms, and he holds a bachelor's degree in computer science and engineering. Good to have you both on the webinar. Before we proceed with the discussion, a quick round of announcements. As a part of this webinar, we have a question and answer session, and we will be conducting 2 poll rounds, each of 1 minute, towards the end of the session. Of course, we would appreciate a 100% participation because that will ensure the great success of this webinar. Now, let me hand this over to Praveen for his presentation.
Thanks, Meghana. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking time out to attend this important webinar. I'm going to introduce our Snowflake Accelerator, DFast, AURA DFast, go through a little bit more why we have created and how our customers are taking advantage of this accelerator to migrate the objects, especially from age-old systems, data warehouse systems like SAP BW or SAP HANA, the older versions, especially into the Snowflake, and how, what are the benefits we are getting. I'll quickly run through that. And then we can go through the exciting part of this webinar, which is the demo. Without any further ado, let me share my screen. DFast, move your data faster. That is the idea behind it, to name the accelerator with that name. It's a Snowflake accelerator meant for Snowflake to move the data from various sources. Today, our focus is on the SAP systems, SAP BW and HANA systems. So this particular accelerator helps your migration projects and help you to embark on your data platform journey much faster. In some cases, in weeks compared to months or years, depends upon that amount of the data you want to move as a part of your data modernization journey. Now, what is this accelerator is meant for, and how you can get a benefit out of it is the topic of the day. In early 2000s is when we have seen many of our customers started getting onto data warehouses. Right now, these data warehouses, especially with our SAP customers, could be on SAP BW or some versions of SAP HANA. Now, what is happening is, as the data is growing in any organization, and the data is growing within the organizations and outside the organizations, and data is becoming very important for the insights generation and decision making. Now, the aging data warehouses are not simple enough to deal with this explosion of data. Now, this may be preaching to choir for some of you, but many of companies' upper management recognized that they need to modernize their data platforms to deal with this explosion of data, the velocity of the data that is coming into their organization. That gives faster insights for the decision making. Now, in order to do that, the only option we have is to modernize your data platforms, getting onto the cloud, getting onto the SaaS-based tools such as Snowflake, which sits on steroids and giving you that speed and quality that you want with a low cost. Now, the challenge is the Snowflake implementation, and the benefits of the Snowflake may be humongous, but the major task is to move the data from your existing data warehouses into the modern data platforms such as Snowflake. How can we speed that up? Now, the question that many people ask is, why do I need the data from my legacy data warehouse or a data warehouse that I want to sunset? Why do I need? Now, what we have seen with our customers, there are foundational data objects, there are foundational data elements that are very important for your business. No matter where that particular data objects and the data elements are sitting, whether it is in the legacy or in your source systems and so forth, they are all the building blocks. For example, your master data, your planning data, your historical sales data, finance data, these are all important to look back for some KPI generation, predicting certain things, forecasting, and so on and so forth. These are the building blocks that you need no matter where you are heading to building your data platform. Now, the question comes, if you already have a curated data in your legacy data warehouse systems, such as SAP BW or HANA, you want to take advantage of it, the curated data, you want to move it, master data, they're very foundational, you want to move it. You don't want to go back to multiple source systems, various source systems in your organization to move, start collecting again all these important Lego blocks, I would say, the foundational Lego blocks into the Snowflake, that would actually take a lot of time. Now, with that in mind, now the question comes, how can I move certain foundational objects from SAP BW or HANA into the Snowflake? That is where the DFast comes in. The BW, as we may all know, is an application-based data warehouse. It is not a SQL-based data warehouse. It is not built on schemas, views, and tables and unions, the BW part. The BW has very unique metadata, like info objects, data store objects, DSOs, open hubs, and the list goes on. And if you want to take advantage of that models and lift and shift into Snowflake, because they're very foundational, someone has to dissect it, understand how that info object is being built, how the DSO is being built, before you go to Snowflake and reconstruct it and load the data. And for that, you may need a BW expert who has done like 5, 6, 7 years ago, or a HANA expert who has done 3, 4 years ago. And plus you need a Snowflake person. You need a lot of skillful people just to lift and shift. That is where the DFast comes in. The DFast comes in here without much human intervention. Understand the BW objects, the legacy objects, and the model around it, dissect it, demystify it, take all the objects, put it in Snowflake, reconstruct in the Snowflake way. Reconstruct in the Snowflake way. It is a lift and shift in terms of the concept, in terms of the model, but not the technology. Snowflake is a different SQL-based data warehouse with the modern concepts in it. That is what the DFast is going to do. Click our buttons. You would see that in the demo. Same thing with the HANA. HANA part is a little bit simpler because HANA is also a SQL-based data warehouse, but it has its own complexity when it comes to the calibrated views and attribute views. It has its own uniqueness when it comes to the HANA, and also understanding that and moving it into Snowflake is also a task. Now, this migrator accelerates your data migration projects, and you will see the benefits right away. Once you move the metadata, then you have the option to load and validate your data into Snowflake with the click of buttons. And of course, the way the tool has been created, you have integration to various ELT tools, such as Talent, data services, Azure Data Factory, the list goes on. So these are some of the important aspects why the DFast even exists, why we have to go through a kind of engineering effort, research to connect these two systems and make it simple, the data migration part of your projects. So what are the key features when our customers are having this DFast UI? It's a web-based UI, you will see it. It has an intuitive UI. A lot of things will be drag and drop. You don't need a BW knowledge that much. And at the same time, you don't need what goes on behind the scenes. Everything is covered with intuitive UI. Integration part, you will see that in the demo. We have seen in many organizations are sitting on SAP BW and HANA systems. It's a mixed bag. Same company as SAP BW, standalone SAP HANA, BW on HANA, all kinds of scenarios. You can connect multiple source systems or BW data warehouse systems into this DFast and connect to various Snowflake systems based on your design. And you can quickly validate within the IDE. You'll get the logs and everything. And of course, the deployment. How do I get this? That is the question we generally get from our customers. This DFast tool can be deployed on-premise or on the cloud where your Snowflake is being deployed. We have multiple options to do that. Now, what are the benefits, right? Why we need to do this? I already explained a little bit, but some very important points that I want to touch. We have some pre-configured pipelines that we have created. But the migrator understand, for example, some standard BW objects, which starts with 0 business content. They are pre-configured irrespective of what BW systems you have. and it understands certain intricacies of how the modeling is done within the BW. So those are pre-configured. You can take advantage of it right away from the day one. Our experience show that there is a 30% cost effectiveness that we have seen, that the 30% is faster of doing the projects. That is converted into money. I would say the cost savings right away. Enterprise grade. Now this is very important because SAP systems are enterprise grade, and Snowflake is enterprise grade. The migrator that comes in between should also be enterprise grade. What does that means? You should be able to have a ability to connect your test systems and development systems and test it and make sure it works before you move to the production. And you need the logs. You need the ability to do the unit testing with the data loads, simple data loads. You have the ability to understand if something fails, a clear understanding of a messages, and also you also want to keep a clear note of what has been migrated. This is all enterprise grade. Security around it is enterprise grade, and the CI/CD is part of the enterprise grade. So this is what we call it as enterprise grade. We thought about all the various aspects before this has been created, and the faster migration, that is the whole point of the migrator even exists. So we will see some of these features in our demo very shortly. Now, moving on to a little bit on the architecture part. The architecture part is, as you see on the screen, as simple as you have your source systems, which in this case, your BW systems are HANA systems. The middle box is the DFast, and it has two important migrator aspects of it. One that reads the metadata, other one that reads the data itself, the business data itself. We used various technologies to generate the appropriate metadata files, and it will store in the metastore, data store, and other technologies. Since this tool is very, I would say platform agnostic, cloud agnostic. If you deploy it on AWS, it will start using the S3 buckets and other AWS technologies automatically. If it is in Microsoft, it uses the Microsoft relevant, and same for the GCP. It's very agnostic, doesn't matter where you want to host it. And if you want to host it on the on-premise, there is an option to store natively. And then seamlessly it moves the data into the Snowflake. Now, one use case I want to present. This is the best case scenario what we have seen, and there are multiple use cases like this that we can share as per your interest. But now what we are showing here is we are done for one of the major oil and gas companies in Texas. They have multiple BW systems. So as a part of our proof of value, we have taken 100 objects and we did a simple study, migrating those 100 objects with accelerator and without accelerator, DFast. For one person to do this 100 objects of all the various complexities, it took like 432 hours, and whereas with the accelerator, which is the DFast, we are able to do it in 148 hours. That is 65% faster. When we were giving the benefits, we were saying 30% because the average was 30%. But for some customers are really enjoying the best case scenarios. One small example like this. And of course, as one of my colleagues just said, we have 2 weeks free availability. You can test it yourself. More than happy for us to help you there. With that, going to the exciting part, I would give back to our moderator to coordinate the next part of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Praveen. It was very insightful, and it was full of knowledge for all of us to understand what an enterprise grade system really means and how it is going to benefit. Okay, moving on with our next speaker for today's session. I would like to invite our speaker and subject expert Syed Naqvi to discuss the importance and the benefits offered by DFast, and also to give a short demonstration of the same to us, which showcases the finesse of aiAURA DFast. Over to you, Syed.
Thank you so much, Meghna. I really wanted to start off by saying that Praveen has elaborately, clearly mentioned the purpose of DFast and the reservations that clients are having towards moving towards a modern data, data intense platform, just because that they don't want to do a rework of recreating those artifacts, recreating those components back into the new database again. And this is where aiAURA DFast comes into picture. The idea and the focus behind it creating is it's not just going to give you just a tool, but it is going to give you a head start in a 100-meter race to let's say 20 feet. That's the best example that I can give or quote. Having said that, we do have challenges which we overcome in this tool. That is to make sure that the tool understands how an artifact in SAP system is created. Let's say SAP HANA system. And I'll give you an example of SAP BW system as well, to indicate that the length at which the tool tries and understands the artifact and component and then recreate it into the modern data warehouse of Snowflake. Having said that, let me share my screen and I will actually present to you all a live demo. Please confirm if you can see my screen. I'm hoping that you're able to see my screen, and
yes,
this is
yes. It is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is our launch screen, and you could actually see that we have dissected the components into different parts. With that said, if you see on the left side panel, you would actually see the connection, the source from which we are connecting. The right side panel would be the target. That's obviously Snowflake. And then we can actually are trying to show you a different views. That is, if it is going to be a view migration, then we are selecting a view and the system will actually open up the view migration part of it. We also have created an upload XML functionality, and that's only to indicate to the businesses or customers. This is actually one of the customers' example that we are quoting. The customer didn't want to connect their source system, but they wanted to upload an XML of your calculation view and wanted to do the view migration. That is also possible by just click of a button. You can upload your .xml calculation view and drag and drop, which I'll show it in a minute, and you'd be able to actually migrate your data from HANA to Snowflake within a click. All right, having said that, let me take one example. This is one such calculation view, and you would see the moment I have dragged and dropped into the center, it's the migrate option has actually enabled. This is to indicate that, okay, this component is actually available for migration. Having said that, let me just do a click. And before doing that, I actually wanted to show one more feature. So on the right side, you are actually seeing all the views that have been migrated. But we are actually also showing a functionality where you can click and directly go to the link to the object which is going to get created, or to the artifact. So this is your HANA connection, and if you click on this Snowflake icon, it will actually migrate you to the Snowflake. Let me click on the migrate button, and I'll actually move towards the view creation stage, and you would actually see this is my launch screen of Snowflake. I'm actually on the schema which I have created, and I'm just doing a little bit of refresh, going towards the view, and you could see that the calculation view has been moved. Okay, the calculation view moved, but how did it move? So I do a right click and preview, and you could actually see that the view has been created with all the artifact that was there in the SAP itself. So the view had projections, so it is doing a projection. The view had a join, the view took that join, and if there are any conditions, it is going to apply those conditions as well. What about data? Let's see the data. Well, this is the easiest way. The base tables are moved, the data is already present, and you can actually do your unit testing right as when you move your view as well. So having said that, what it also gives is a log. And I'm right now back on my aiAURA DFast tool, and you could actually see that the log has been mentioning that the view has moved. I'll not take much time, but I wanted to take one such example of migration of data as well as BW component. So as you can see, with respect to time, I have actually narrowed down to showcase you that when the system is being selected as BW, you can actually see that it has object and data migration. So I'm right now in the data migration tab, where you could see that I have created my schema. My objects are already existing. At the same time, it is also saying that for this object, whichever I have migrated to, I also want to load some data. I have selected just 20 rows. I actually want to show only 20 rows or migrate only 20 rows just for my testing purpose. So I have done that, and you could see that the data is successfully loaded. And at the same time, if I move towards my BW screen, this is my database. I'm just doing a refresh. I'll actually open my schema in which I have moved this. And what I'll do is I'll quickly copy the object on which I have loaded the data. And let me just do a filter, find out the same table. And you could see that actual 20 rows have been moved. And when you want to preview the data, you can actually see the data as well. Okay, so this is from the BW side. So what I'm trying to say is the complexity that's involved. Basically, when we are trying to move an info object, SAP creates an info object with multiple tables. It creates its primary table. It also creates a text table differently to store the master data and text. But here in Snowflake, do we really need to copy it the same way, or it needs to be translated into the Snowflake way? And this is what we have done. It only migrates those tables. Rather than creating an info object, it creates those base tables, and you can individually load the data into those tables. This can happen to DSO as well. You can store, it actually goes in the background and creates an active table of the DSO. And it also happens on OpenHub, that it creates OpenHub as well as its base table into the Snowflake. I wanted to just highlight a few more things from a calculation view point of view. You might be saying like, hey, this is a very complex, a very easy scenario where we have a calculation view which is doing a left outer join. Let me bring your attention to one of the views that we have actually created. So this is actual client migration view, which actually uses PO, GR, and IR data. So it is actually joining multiple tables of SAP to create one single view, and it is executing it as a report to the end user. And for any report, you would actually see that it uses the label names, which is company code rather than BUKRS, and company code name, you'd see plant. If I scroll down, you could see that this projection, there were around 19 projections, and there were around 18 joins that have been done in order to achieve this. And aiAURA DFast is able to do it successfully. It not just does one level, the whole technology behind it actually goes multiple level, where it tries to find out a view inside view, if there is a view that has been reused. And we've seen certain examples where the customer has actually used a existing calculation view inside their views, and they have on the projection layer, they've added few more fields associated to it and did it. And from a deployment perspective, when we are selecting the main view and moving it towards Snowflake, it creates two views. The view which is also there inside also gets created. What happens? So someone will ask, what will happen if in those cases the underlying table is not existing? The system shows that as well, saying that the data artifact is missing in Snowflake. So you have to first put the data artifact in, and then move the view migration. So having said that, I just wanted to highlight the growth path towards aiAURA DFast. And you would be asking how exactly we are going to do it for just SAP systems. No, the target is, and the plan which we are putting forward is to have all those connections to be created for further systems as well. And you could see the list and it will go on. What we are trying to connect, and you could see on my screen, is we are basically taking small connection names and we are actually putting in all the information that is required. That is the artifact, the schema, the warehouse. All those information will be passed so that it's easier when we actually move. We could see all those information being passed from the source what you have selected for it to be translated into the target. With that said, I actually want to end my presentation here. I'll stop my sharing, but I'm open for any questions on the tool demo. Thank you. Over to you, Meghna.
Thank you so much, Saeed, for your insightful readings and answers. And I'm very sure all of us have learned a lot from this gamut of cutting-edge technology, which has given us very good insights. I believe this presentation and similar others we have conducted in the past, they have generated a vast amount of information and knowledge for all of us to share and to understand how businesses can be built and managed with high-performing applications like the aiAURA DFast. Now, going ahead, we have the two poll rounds lined. So here comes the first round of questions in the poll round 1. There is a total time of 1 minute, so you should be attempting both. And we are looking at very good participation over here. As time will end, we'll come to understand the result also. I urge the audience to participate enthusiastically in these questions, for these questions. All right, so let us look at the results. I'm sure the results are very heartening. Going ahead, let us go for the second poll round questions, please. So you can see in front of you these two questions, which you should be answering again for a very good insight for all of us. 1 minute to be spent on this all. Once this round also gets over, we'll look at the results. Expecting all of you must have taken the rounds, both of them. And let us look at the result. Wow, that seems to be good. That should take us to the ultimate, the final most round, the questions we have from all of you. But at the outset, let me thank all of you for participating and sharing your opinions with us. And let us attempt to take up some of the questions we have. And I can see a few questions have been raised. The first question seems to be for Praveen. And the question is, what reservations do clients have for a greenfield implementation on cloud? Over to you, Praveen.
Thank you, Meghna. It was a very good question. So based on our experience with what we have seen with many customers, and also at the same time during our initial implementation phase of modern cloud data platform implementations, one of the main questions that the data architects or the data CDO teams, like the chief data officer teams and so forth, the question that always comes is, we always spent as an organization 10 years building these legacy data warehouses. or in some cases more, regional specific, domain specific, or business unit specific data warehouses. Now we have to move all these things into a new modern platform, a cloud-based platform. Is it going to take that much amount of time? Another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years? That is the question. So if, as an implementation partner, if we do not explain this properly, that there are some building blocks, as I was explaining before, there are some building blocks, and those building blocks are your fundamental foundational aspects of your data platform that can be moved from your existing warehouses into the new warehouses, such as Snowflake. That would cut down a lot of time. Therefore, you need not to spend that many years what you have done in the past. If that answer convinces our customers, they are ready to embark on this data journey and get into the modern data platforms. And that is where, I mean, I may be repeating, that is where the DFast comes, or the migrators or accelerators comes, help to, not only, we give this as a concept, but also give that as a tool that they can use it and move it. That will reduce a lot of burden and remove that question, am I going to spend another 10 years building a data warehouse? I already have this 10 years worth of time. So that is the general question comes in the greenfield implementations, which is a very valid. We are not saying that migrate your data warehouse as it is, migrate your building blocks to the new platforms, and then start with that foundation, start modernizing based on your use cases. And some of these use cases may be not just BI, maybe AI and ML. I hope that answers the questions. Over to you, Magna.
Thank you so much, Praveen. Very knowledgeable, very insightful. Thank you. The next question seems to be for Syed. Syed, the question is, what were the key challenges to consider while doing the object migration in BW? So over to you.
Right, that's a very good question. I tried answering that during the demo as well, where I mentioned that for a traditional BW system, we have info object. Traditionally, info object gets created with multiple tables in any scenario, right? So we have identified or made sure that when we are trying to migrate, we're not migrating an info object, we are trying to move its, I would say, structure. So in this cases, that's where we, when you saw the screen during the demo, it was clearly mentioned that when we are trying to move one object, it selected those tables, backend tables that are required, and then move those artifacts with the name. Same goes with a I would say a DSO. We have to identify its active table, and then we move it. And for an info cube, we don't need an info cube. BW has used star schema to create an info cube, but when you're going to a modern data warehouse such as Snowflake, you really don't need that. And what we are suggesting is we create an open hub on top of that info cube, and then move the artifact or the architecture or the structure of that into the system. So that would be the main challenges I would consider knowing it. And as over the time, and again, what we have mentioned is the focus is to create a modern data warehouse by leveraging what's been existing. And that's the key thing. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
I'm sure it does. Thank you so much for that answer. Going forward, the next question could be answered by any of the two of you. And the question is, are there any limitations or considerations while using DFast?
Okay, so, yeah, let me take that question, Praveen. Limitation per se, I know there was a question that came in this box as well, where it was mentioned like after moving the artifact, are we moving the data as well? The answer is yes, we are moving the data, but remember that this tool is not a ETL tool per se, where we have historical 20 years of a BW old system which we want to move, and we want to use this tool to migrate that data. the idea or the focus or emphasis would be to do data migration from a unit test perspective to make sure that, okay, my info object had 4 characters of a company code being created. Is it the same way that when we are plugging in a ETL tool to do a mass migration, is it working well or not? So that's the idea behind it. So from a limitation per se, I would say don't use this as an ETL tool. Use it for a unit testing perspective and the data migration. And I showed you in the demo that we selected minimum rows in order to do the migration for successful unit test. That's the idea behind it.
Thank you again. And one more question. Said, this is for you again. During view migration, does it consider prompt variables? And if the answer is yes, how does it work?
Okay, that's a very good question, very technical one. Points for that. So so when we are migrating a view, we are actually considering the variable prompt variables as well. Yes, those which are mandatory would be indicated with a star mark to make sure that it is being migrated. Those which are optional can be left blank. How does a view gets created is it's going to be created with a view name underscore whatever the parameter that we have passed as a variable. I'll give you an example. Let's say in a view migration, if we are selecting the year as 2022, then the view that will get created in the Snowflake would be view name underscore 2022, and that's how the data will get migrated. I hope that answers as well.
I'm sure of that myself. And I think that brings us to the wrap-ups. So I believe we have tried answering almost all questions we have been put forward. But if you feel there are more, we can always answer those for you. You could always reach us out at enquiry@mauritech.com. And you will also find the LinkedIn page in the chat box. Please like it and stay updated. So thank you very much for giving us your time today and attending today's session. We will be responding to all the unanswered questions in around 2 or 3 working days. And of course, I request you to fill the feedback form in the interim. And we're always focused on getting better with each event. So thank you again. Have a great day or evening. Thank you. Signing off.
Thank you.